Welcome everybody, thanks for coming through to my NSX Unexpected Journey. My name's Anthony Spiteri, I'm the lead architect for Zetagrid. So I'd like to thank the vBrownbag team firstly for letting me step up here and talk about the Honda NSX. It's a great car, been around for a while, but no. I do love this car, it's fantastic, and if you have a look at the new model, that's even better. Have a look at that. It's a really good-looking car. It's a 2016 version, so it's really awesome. That, in some ways, I've kind of play with NSX day to day, but I don't own the NSX like I used to. So a little bit about myself first. I'm the lead architect for Zetagrid. We're a leading vCloud Air partner in Australia and ANZ. Do a lot of great stuff. Our premise is based on automation. So unlike a lot of the providers, we struggle with automating our platform, our provisioning. We have a dev team and I get to work with them day in, day out. I'm a VMware vExpert 4-time and I am a vChampion, which is an Australian-run program. So I try and be a contributor to the community, try hard. I run the Virtualization is Life blog, anthonyspiteri.net, and I'm extremely passionate about all things cloud. What I really like doing though is I really like working with great technology. And that's a catchphrase that I like saying. Love doing great things with great tech. And I'm fortunate that working in the VMware community, we get to work with some great technology. And I'm got to say, I'm not a network guy and I'm not a coder. So that kind of ties into what I'm going to be talking about now. So NSX is pretty cool, right? Like it's been released for about 2 years now. VMware's been talking about it, hyping it up since an Icera build. Premise is we virtualize a network, we abstract the physical to logical, and it does a bunch of great things. For me though, my initial draw to NSX was the fact that it reminded me a lot of vCloud Director. So obviously my background is working with vCloud quite closely over the past 4 or 5 years, and I saw a great parallel in what NSX was doing in terms of what vCloud was doing to compute and storage. I thought NSX doing the same things for networking, pretty good show. So when NSX was released as a product, I looked at it and I thought through sort of holes in the Zetagrid platform that we could use it. So I went through the initial sort of phases of working with NSBU, going through design workshops, working through scenarios, selecting the features of NSX that we would bring in as a product. Look at what's applicable, what's possible, look at how we multi-tenant it. And then what we would do from there is we would start to work with the development team to go from a manual process in terms of deploying, configuring, and getting that automated. And this is where this talk's going to take a little bit of a turn, and this is where I'm going to try and loosely tie in the unexpected journey. I gave this talk in Melbourne VMworld User Conference in April, and it was more about the whole end-to-end process of productizing NSX. So again, what I saw here was that through the process of my day-to-day role in R&D was that I would take manual steps, work with the developers, and they would then turn it to automated steps or provisioning. You know, take a manual workflow, turn that in with the APIs, use VCO, and create VCO workflows to automatically provision systems. So as you can see on the board here, we go through and use a wiki. I go through and I'd list the steps, how to install, how to configure, and funnily enough, these also lead to blog posts, which is also quite cool in terms of content creation. And then the bottom there, we started to take a look at the individual aspects specifically around the NSX Edge, which is what we're releasing as a product fairly shortly. What we're doing is actually taking the Edge functionality and abstracting that into our own front end. And in that, I started to do more with APIs. And this is something that I had purposely not done over the first sort of 20 years of my IT career. I always thought it was more of a developer sort of realm. I didn't really understand it. I didn't really want to understand it. And this is where this whole journey comes in. So if you think back, I mean, I've been in IT, 15 years, 5 years before that, consuming, Windows and whatnot and having a tinker. You think about how we spent our day-to-day over the last 20 years, right? And I feel that we've all been on this journey, and it was only recently where I discovered that we'd all been doing the same thing. And thinking back, we look at Windows, the way we used to install, configure it. We've got SQL, we've got back-end Windows services. Exchange server was one that I was quite passionate about, but I really didn't appreciate the magic that was going on in the background. It was always a next scenario. Even when we're doing stuff with Linux, I'm not a big Linux freak, but I still got to do it. And my first boss was a massive fan of compiling Linux applications and services. And I tried that a couple of times. The dependency thing would come through. It's a big headache, not really fun. Recently, though, with apt-get and yum, it's made it a lot more easier. So we're consuming and we're interacting with it a little bit better, but still kind of a pain. So thinking about that to myself, for me, the last 20 years, really we've been doing things with GUIs and CLIs. And again, there has been guys that, have been working underneath that and still working with the programmability of APIs and other ways to tamper into it. But for me, especially in the last 2 to 3 years, we've all been moving away from configuring services specifically through GUIs and through command line and making more the programmatic shift. And I guess the DevOps movement has a lot to sort of thank for that. Also the rise of containerization, Docker, we're starting to move. So for me, I thought it was time to take a look and really get into the APIs. And when I think about the APIs, you sort of think it's all magic, and this is a thing. I never forget the first time that I saw an automated deployment at ZGrid of the NSX Edge, and I thought there's a lot of magic that goes into this. So for me, it was all about getting myself to understand how the devs interact with those APIs, which then translate through back to the manual steps to create the whole product. So this is a bit of a controversial one. DevOps is obviously quite huge. I don't think personally that you need to be a DevOps to be able to understand and take this next step and to be able to pivot for APIs. There are plenty of tools out there which tap into the APIs, and certainly though it's still important to understand the languages on the back end, like Python. A lot of API tool sets are driven by, say, Python. So it's important from my perspective to be able to understand and at least interpret that. Power CLI as well. It's another one of those great tools which you can wrap and call APIs through and be able to work with the API and not actually understand too much how to programmatically get into it. If you check out GitHub and search for API toolsets, you're going to find a few. And I want to call out one specifically. So obviously, me being a big vCloud guy, love vCloud Air, like vCloud Director. I was looking at ways of how we can consume that better and how we can get our customers to actually create clouds, virtual data centers, DCs a little bit better. And Paco Gomez has a great tool, written in Python again, VCA CLI. I'd encourage you to go download it if you haven't used it, if you want to interact with vCloud Air. But effectively, what you're doing here is a command line tool set, which you then use to connect to vCloud Air or vCloud Director, be it ZGrid or whatnot, and actually manipulate your data. So if through here you can go in, you can list all your VDCs, you can create VApps, you can create the network and do all that kind of stuff. So as an example, this is what I'm specifically talking about. So this is the unexpected journey. In a sense, NSX has dragged me kicking and streaming into this next world. And without that, I think I still would have been quite content to stay with the old world of next, let's just do it and not really understand what we're working with. So working with APIs has that traditional pivot. So a big word. If pivoting is huge in our industry, but it's important for us. If we're content to sit back and actually still do what we've been doing for the last 20 years, we're never going to get further. And I think right now is a time for everyone to sit back and pivot and be able to actually think about where they want to go with their career, because certainly there's a movement towards consuming IT differently. And if that's the takeaway from today, that's the one I want to give you. So hopefully I've kind of wrapped it up and sort of tied it all together. Sorry about the voice. I'm a little bit of a Ray Romano today, but had a bit of a cold. So thank you very much, and hope you got something out of it.